Welcome to True Love Story with Deep Love, where words fall silent, but hearts speak louder. Here, love isn't just a feeling, it's a journey. It begins with unspoken desire, where glances become language and silence holds meaning. It endures through boundless devotion, the kind of love that never fades no matter how far the distance. It opens to emotional vulnerability, where hearts tremble, trust grows, and surrender becomes strength. And it finds peace in the promise of forever, when passion matures into a love that stays, not for a moment, but for a lifetime. Every story here is real, raw, and told from the soul, because true love doesn't just happen, it transforms you. So, take a deep breath, listen closely, and let your heart remember what forever feels like. It began in a silence that felt heavier than words. Not the kind of silence that fills empty rooms, but the kind that hums between two hearts before they dare to speak. There was something in the way his eyes lingered, like they already knew a language mine had forgotten. Every glance was a sentence, every pause a paragraph. It wasn't about what was said, it was about everything that didn't need to be. He was never the loud kind of man. His presence didn't demand attention, it quietly invited it. There was a steadiness in him that calmed storms I didn't even realize I carried. When he looked, it wasn't casual. It felt as though he was seeing through everything, every wall, every mask, every quiet ache buried beneath practiced smiles. And in that gaze, something fragile yet powerful began to grow. The first time our hands brushed, it was an accident, an almost, a near touch. Yet it felt as though time had stopped just long enough for the universe to whisper, "Pay attention." And I did. From that moment, every small thing mattered. The way his laughter came late, the way his voice softened when speaking to me, the way he remembered little details no one else ever noticed. These were quiet signals in a language only we seemed to understand. There were nights when words would have ruined everything. The truth between us lived in the spaces between them. Sometimes he would just sit close, close enough that breathing felt shared. No declarations, no confessions, just the quiet electricity of being near him. The world could have ended outside those moments, and it wouldn't have mattered, because in the stillness there was meaning deeper than anything words could hold. People often think love begins with a confession, but ours began with restraint. It lived in the almosts, the maybes, the gentle hesitations that hurt and healed at the same time. I could feel his affection in the way he avoided looking too long, in the way he always found a reason to stay just a moment longer. It wasn't absence of courage, it was reverence, like love too sacred to rush. There were evenings when he'd walk beside me, both of us lost in the hum of our own thoughts, and yet something invisible kept us in rhythm. Our shadows touched long before our hands did. It was as if our hearts were already entwined, waiting for the rest of us to catch up. When he finally did speak of feelings, it wasn't a grand confession. It came softly, like the truth had been waiting patiently for its moment. "It's strange," he said, eyes fixed somewhere distant, "how being near you feels like remembering something I never learned." That was all. No promises, no embellishment, just quiet truth, raw and steady. And that was enough to change everything. After that, silence became our safest place. There were days when we didn't speak at all, yet every look carried more depth than any conversation could hold.
He'd watch, sometimes smiling faintly as if the whole world made sense in that simple exchange. And I'd understand without asking what he felt, what he feared, what he wished. But silence has its price. The same stillness that holds love can also hold longing. There were nights when the distance between us, though small, felt unbearable. Wanting him became an ache that lived in every heartbeat. But there was beauty in that ache. It reminded me that this connection wasn't about possession. It was about recognition. Two souls seeing each other in a way that words could never capture. He once said, "If I ever hold you, I want it to be when I can keep you." That sentence never left. It carried weight, not of hesitation, but of depth, of wanting something real, lasting, not fleeting. He wasn't the kind to rush love. He wanted to build it like a promise, not chase it like a moment. That quiet patience was his language of devotion. The world around us often demanded definitions, but we never needed them. What we shared existed in a space too delicate for labels. It was understood, not declared, felt, not described. Sometimes, when he'd reach for my hand, the warmth would linger long after he let go, and in that warmth lived every unsaid word. There were days when fear crept in, the fear of losing something never fully claimed, but even in those moments, his steadiness anchored everything. He had a way of reminding that love doesn't always need to be loud to be real. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, enduring, the kind that doesn't fade when unseen. Seasons changed, yet the thread between us never loosened. There were separations, days when life pulled us in different directions, but every return felt inevitable. The silence between us had grown roots, deep and unbreakable. We didn't need to ask where we stood. It was understood in every meeting of eyes, every steady breath shared across distance. When he finally said he wanted marriage, it wasn't in the heat of passion. It came on an ordinary afternoon, with sunlight spilling through half-open curtains. He said, "I want to build my forever around us," quietly. And that this wasn't about perfection. It was about the quiet bond we'd built from unspoken moments. It wasn't a proposal of fantasy. It was a truth, grounded and pure. He didn't promise endless happiness. He promised presence. And in that promise, there was everything. Even now, that silence stays, not empty, but full of memory. Every glance, every pause, every breath we ever shared still lives in that space between words. That's the thing about unspoken love. It never truly ends. It echoes. And sometimes, in quiet moments, it still feels like he's there. Not beside, but within. Because love like that never really leaves. It transforms. It becomes the pulse beneath calm, the reason for stillness, the soft ache that reminds one how deeply two souls can belong without ever needing to explain why. Love, in its purest form, doesn't always demand to be spoken. Sometimes it just asks to be felt, completely, silently, eternally. And in that silence, it lives. There are some loves that time cannot tame. No matter how far the distance grows, no matter how many years slip quietly away, something inside refuses to let go. It isn't about stubbornness or even hope. It's about the kind of connection that carves itself so deeply into the soul that forgetting becomes impossible. He was that kind of love. The one that arrived without warning, stayed without asking, and lingered without permission. The kind that didn't fade when the world changed. There was something eternal in the way he looked, in the way he cared, something unshakably pure, as if his love didn't depend on circumstance or convenience. It just existed, constant as breath. When life began to scatter us in different directions, I thought distance would dull what we felt. It didn't. If anything, it sharpened it, made every memory brighter, every echo louder. Days without him stretched endlessly, yet even in absence, he was everywhere. In the morning light filtering through the window, in the hum of the city at dusk, in the small, unremarkable details that somehow carried his presence. There were letters once, words written with trembling honesty. He never wrote much. He never had to. Just a few lines that carried everything. Take care of yourself. I'm proud of you. I'll wait. Each word was a